Okay, so when you picture a tech billionaire, who comes to mind? Probably not this guy, Sergey Brin, but today we're going to dig into the story of the quiet architect behind one of the most powerful companies in the world, the man who really helped shape the soul of Google.
All right, let's just break this down. On one side, you have the stereotype we all know, right? The loud keynote speeches, the public fights on social media, the constant need for the spotlight. And then you've got Sergey Brin, pretty much the exact opposite. Quiet, intensely private, and way more focused on the actual problem than the persona.
Which really brings up a fascinating question, and it's kind of the whole point of our explainer today. Who is this quiet man who ended up building the very soul of Google?
To figure that out, we've got to go back, way back. It's a journey that takes us from Moscow all the way to Stanford. And that whole journey was pretty much defined by one powerful idea, the pursuit of freedom. So his story kicks off in Moscow in the 1970s. He was born into a Jewish family, and his father, who was a brilliant mathematician, was flat out denied opportunities because of his background. Sergey literally grew up in a system that was designed to put a ceiling on your curiosity.
And here's the key. The reason his family left wasn't just about money or a better job, it was about intellectual survival. His parents knew that a mind like his just couldn't thrive in a system that was built on telling you no. So when he was just 6 years old, they left for the United States.
And that move, it changed absolutely everything. Suddenly, young Sergey Brin was dropped into a world he'd never known, a world filled with computers and, more importantly, ideas that weren't censored. All those limits were just gone. So let's fast forward to his PhD program at Stanford. He was brilliant, super blunt, and totally unafraid to ask the toughest questions. And it was there that he met his intellectual match, a guy named Larry Page. But here's the funny thing. They didn't actually like each other at first. Not at all. You had two incredibly powerful minds with very different styles. Their bond, their partnership, it wasn't built on friendship. It was built on this shared relentless curiosity. And it was that very curiosity that led them to take on a massive problem, organizing all of the world's information. It sounds simple, but it was an idea that would completely transform the internet as we knew it. You have to remember, back in the 90s, search engines were kind of a mess. Larry and Sergey's idea was both incredibly simple and totally revolutionary. They saw the web as a huge network, and they realized a link from one page to another wasn't just a connection. It was like a vote of trust. So their big idea was, hey, what if we just count the votes? That's how you find the best, most trusted answer. At first, they called their project Backrub. Yeah, terrible name, brilliant idea. They very wisely renamed it Google, which is a play on the word Google. That's the number 1 followed by 100 zeros. And that name just perfectly captured their mission, to organize a seemingly infinite amount of information. As Google just exploded, their roles really started to become clear. Larry Page was the visionary, the one shaping the overall business strategy. But Sergey Brin, he was its soul. He was the one who built Google's fearless, open, and constantly innovative culture from the ground up. He was the guy pushing for what we now call moonshots, way before it was some corporate buzzword. Think about it, self-driving cars, Google Glass, foundational AI research, even huge initiatives in health science. He didn't just want to answer questions. He wanted to solve the world's biggest, hardest problems. But of course, that kind of immense success almost always comes at a price. And this brings us to the human cost. What happens when the pressure of building a global empire collides with your private life?
So in 2007, he married Ann Wojcicki, the co-founder of 23andMe. They seemed like a perfect power couple. But by 2013, reports started coming out about an affair with a Google employee. The couple separated and their divorce was finalized in 2015.
And his response to this, well, it was perfectly in character. In the middle of a very public scandal, what did he do? No drama, no PR spin, no excuses. He just stepped back from the spotlight and continued his work, quietly. Now, he did remarry later on, though that relationship also ended. But through all these different chapters in his life, one thing has always stayed the same: his intense commitment to privacy, which makes him almost invisible compared to all the noise coming out of Silicon Valley.
So where does all of this leave him today? Well, it brings us to his quiet legacy, one that's focused on solving problems, not seeking a spotlight.
You're not going to see him giving a bunch of interviews or chasing headlines. Instead, his time and his money are poured into funding critical Parkinson's research, exploring new AI projects, supporting climate work, and investing in the next generation of huge ideas. So when you look back at his whole journey, from Moscow to Google and beyond, the connecting thread is crystal clear. He never really cared about being famous. He cared about solving hard problems. His childhood taught him the value of freedom, and his work became an extension of that, the freedom to think, to create, and to build.
And all this leaves us with a final thought. You know, in a world that constantly rewards the loudest voice in the room, what kind of legacy does a quiet genius truly leave behind?